Thank you. If you missed the intro, this is our last installment of Feminism. Oh, I don't know what's wrong with my audio. I'm on headphones. If I were on, is this better? If I'm not on headphones? No, not better. I'm talking. Can you hear me? I apologize. Okay, if this is a little bit better, then I can stay off of headphones and talk that way. I apologize for the technical difficulties. If you're here, then you're at our last session of Exploring Feminism, Inspiration from QT BIPOC Activists for Women's History Month 2021. We're talking about imagining queer communities in the future at the moment, or the future is the present, etc. We'll get into that. But we'd like to ground in doing a land acknowledgement to begin with. And so first, we'd like to acknowledge the custodians of this land, the Kumeyaay people and their elders past and present, and acknowledge and respect their continuing resilience and culture, as well as recognize the strength, resilience, and capacity of these people and extend this respect to the other Indigenous people who may be present in our group. And then there are 3 additional ways besides doing a land acknowledgement that we can continue to support the local Indigenous people. That is through being engaged on their social media, which is one way to keep up with current events, but also these social medias, if you've been to previous events, then you would have heard that on these, there's lots of ways to redistribute your resources and a lot of different outlets for that. So your resources can be financial resources, money, it can be your time, it can be your labor, your energy, and all of those accounts on Instagram, possibly Twitter as well, have links on where you can donate and or volunteer. Keeping up with current events is another good way to make sure that you're not thinking of Indigenous people as something that was in the past. A lot of people talk about Indigenous people in a past tense. That is not the case. They are still here. There are still current issues and struggles that we can help support. Reading up on current issues is one way to keep up with that. And then understanding history, right? Instead of making another group of people an abstract concept in your mind, you can learn more about their identities, the things that are sacred to them, and like also their history, right? And like the history of why they are displaced here on this land, and also more about their culture. So you can do that through, these are some YouTube documentaries, but there's also lots of articles as well.
Thank you, Celine. We also want to go over some community guidelines for the space, as part of this is sort of like a journaling and reflection and thought sharing space. So first is to take care of yourself. Remember that you come first, do what you need to do to feel comfortable in this space, even if that is to leave, to turn your camera off, to participate in the chat, or if you need to pull Celine or I aside into a breakout room, that's totally cool, let us know. The second is to challenge assumptions. So recognizing the idea that all knowledge is cultural and contingent on context. So we try our best not to assume base experiences amongst all of us. We all live unique lives. And the last is to respect boundaries. So what is said stays and what is learned leaves. So larger ideas about the activists and things that we're talking about in relation to queer feminist futures that can leave the space and should be shared with others. Other things that are personal should stay within the space. If there's anything else that you need, feel free to let us know.
Before we like to get started, would everybody like to check in? Again, like Shannon outlined in our guidelines, you're not obligated to show up in a particular way. So however you want to participate is fine. And so if you'd like to check in though, you're more than welcome to, either verbally or in the chat, and we'd like to hear your name, pronouns. What is your favorite accomplishment in the month of March? I think March has felt like all of 2021 in general, like to me, at least. And then what is one of your greatest strengths in meeting new challenges? So if any new challenge arises or there's any change in your life, what is one of your greatest strengths in meeting it? Anybody is welcome to go first or share, either verbally or in the chat.
I can go first. My name is Lori. I use she or they pronouns. I think my favorite accomplishment in the month of March is that it's the first like full month that I've ever kept up with a bullet journal. And I like started it midway through February and then like did not do so hot at the end of February, but then I did really well in March. And I'm like really excited about that. It's been something that I've like really wanted to like be consistent with, but the last time I started was last March and that just like went super horribly, but I'm really, really excited about that. Yeah, thanks for the space to share.
I can go next. So my name is Shannon. My pronouns are she, her, hers. My favorite accomplishment in the month of March is this event. I mean, we have consistently done it like every week throughout March, and it has been such a joy to like connect with people in this way and share this information with people. And like, I don't know, I think all of Women's History Month too has been really successful. So that's definitely been my favorite accomplishment this month.
Hi everyone, I can go next. My name is Elspeth, pronounced she, her, hers, or ella. Greatest accomplishment, I think, has been, I don't even know. Honestly, I should have thought I might answered before, but I think it's honestly been just spending time with my family. Like I typically do that, but I feel like even more so this month, I've been really mindful and like intentional and spending time with family and like taking the weekend to fully recharge and rest. So that's been really special to me. And then one of my greatest strengths in meeting new challenges is my open-mindedness. I think I come in like open to hearing, you know, just like pros and cons and being fluid in that way. So thanks for letting me check in.
Thank you for checking in the chat. That is definitely a lot to manage. Yeah, I would also say that's probably my accomplishment as well. It's like same as yours. Thank you for wording it out for me so I don't have to articulate it. Thank you for checking in. Sean, you're not obligated to as well, but if you'd like to, then I want to offer this space for you too. Either verbally or in the chat, so no pressure to. And I can introduce myself, I guess, in the meantime too. My name is Celine. I use she or they pronouns. Great. I share maybe one of the strengths that I'm appreciating and like meeting new challenges is I think I'm good at seeing like common threads in like my person or identity or character, or like I can take a previous thing. I'm like, okay, because I got through that, I can get through this situation. And that really helps me, or that's my lifeline for better, for worse. Okay, well, time, space, but we'll move on to the next slide. Quick.
Okay, awesome. Thank you everybody for checking in. It's always nice to hear from people and see where we're all at before we jump into this like sometimes really heavy material. But in order to begin our program, this is something we do every week. So those of you that have been here before, this is a spiel that you've heard a couple of times. Those of you who are new to the space, I want to center sort of our praxis and thinking about what does it mean to queer feminism. This is something that we will discuss at large in today's session, but I will touch on it here. So most of us are likely familiar with the term queer related to sexuality and sexual identity, right? So the Q and LGBTQIA. For the purpose of this program, and throughout the program, we have proposed using queer as a reference to identities that fall outside of society's norms. And these norms are often constructed around ideas of whiteness, heterosexuality, affluence, masculinity, and physical and mental ability. And so in queering the norm and in queering feminism, by tackling issues usually left out of conversations, we begin to form a more inclusive and understanding community and political coalition. This is particularly important as today we talk about identity and securing what we need or want in a feminist future that makes us feel safe, free, and cared for. For our session today, we're going to discuss two prevalent activists, Saba Chowdhury and Sonia Renee Taylor. Each of these activists touch on identity and our relationships to our bodies and how our bodies move throughout a world that wants to place us into specific, monolithic, sort of never-changing boxes. We have chosen these activists and this idea of securing a queer feminist future in order to get us thinking about a society that cultivates proper care for all of its inhabitants, regardless of identity, and especially those who are denied visibility, access, and sort of basic freedoms. Not only thinking about institutions and social systems, but ourselves as well, allowing ourselves to cross borders between identities and feelings and presentations and say that we belong in any space.
Okay, so we usually like to start off by sharing a particular quote from each of our activists. This is a quote from Sonia Renee Taylor on Brene Brown's podcast. Both are well-known transformative justice activists. And this quote says, "We will not go back to normal. Normal never was. Our pre-corona existence was not normal, other than we normalized greed, inequity, exhaustion, depletion, extraction, disconnection, confusion, rage, hoarding, hate, and lack. We should not long to return, my friends. We are being given the opportunity to stitch a new garment, one that fits all of humanity and nature." And so if you pull anything from this quote, I think it gets at the idea of, we were normalizing this idea of scarcity, right? And this highlights that that was the normal, right, of hate, lack, or extraction overall, right, and a disconnection from the way that we profit from our labor. And so in this session, we hope to imagine how we can move away from that and still maintain, right, like a community, a society, an economy, etc., but one that's not based in inequity, greed, or depletion. I'd like to share this short, it's like a 3.5 minute spoken word poetry by Sonia Renee Taylor called "The Body's Not an Apology." So I'll go ahead and play that next.
The body is not an apology. Let it not be forget-me-not, fixed to mattress when night threatens to leave the room empty as the belly of a crow. The body is not an apology. Do not present it as a disassembled rifle when they have yet to prove themselves more than common intruder. The body is not an apology. Let it not be common as oil, ash, or toilet. Let it not be small as gravel, stain, or teeth. Let it not be mountain when it is sand. Let it not be ocean when it is grass. Let it not be shaken, flattened, or raised in contrition. The body is not an apology. Do not present the body as communion, confession. Do not ask for to be pardoned as criminal. The body is not a crime, is not a spill to be contained, is not a lost set of keys, a wrong number dialed. It is not the orange burst of blood to shame white dresses. The body is not an apology. It is not the unintended granule of bone beneath will. The body is not kill, is not unkempt car, is not a forgotten appointment. Do not speak it vulgar. The body is not soiled, is not filth to be forgiven. The body is not an apology. It is not a father's backhand. It's not mother's dinner late again, wrecked jaw howl. It is not the drunken sorcery of contorting steel round tree. The body is not calamity. The body is not a math test. The body is not a wrong answer. The body is not a failed class. You are not failing. The body is not a cavity, not a hole to be filled, to be yanked out, not a broken thing to be mended, be tossed. The body is not prison, is not sentence to be served, is not pavement, is not prayer. Do not give the body as gift, only receive it as such. The body is not to be prayed for, is to be prayed to. So, for the evermore tortile 10th grade knows, hallelujah. For the shower song throat that crackles like a grandfather's Victrola, hallelujah. For the spine that never healed, for the broken heart that didn't either, hallelujah. For the sloping pulp of back, hip, belly, hosanna. For the errant hairs that rove the face like a pack of misplaced wolves, hosanna. For the parts we have endeavored to excise, blessed be the cancer, the palsy, the womb that opens like a trap door. Praise the body in its blackjack magic, even in this. For the razor wire mouth, for the sweet God ribbon within. Praise for the mistake that never was. Praise for the mistake you never were. Praise for the bend, twist, fall, and rise again. Fall and rise again. For the raising like an obstinate Christ. For the salvation of a body that bends like a baptismal bowl. For those who will worship at the lip of this sanctuary. Praise the body, for the body is not an apology. The body is deity. The body is God. The body is God. The only righteous love who will never need repent. Thank you all so much, Button. Thank you.
Thank you all for watching that with me. One of the things that really stood out to me about that was when she said don't, or never give the body, but only receive it as a gift, or not to give it as a gift. But this really made me think about and centering in this session how do you hold your body? What does your body mean to you? I think these are some like intro journaling prompts, but just thinking about like, how do I hold my body? Like, what do I, like, I sometimes think of it as just like a vessel or something that my soul lives in or resides in. But what if I envisioned it as, right, like more than that and more than just a flesh? And that I were intrinsically connected to it in some way. How would I be more committed to protecting it, etc.? So no, we're not going to play this again. Continuing to talk about Sonia Renee Taylor and their activism. They're an activist, founder, educator, and an author of The Body's Not an Apology. Very good book. I have not read it. I read excerpts from it in certain chapters, but would highly recommend. And the basis of a lot of their activism is that radical self-love is a means of healing oppression, so healing from specific systemic oppressions, especially living as a Black woman in the US. And radical self-love is intrinsic to social justice. It can be a catalyst for social change. They're a speaker and advocate for racial, disability, reproductive, and gender justice, feminism, working against internalized oppression, especially at the body level. If you think about body somatics and like body acceptance, moving beyond acceptance to celebration and radical acceptance and self-love, mental health, and they're also big on youth advocacy and reaching youth and elevating their ability to write and articulate their feelings about their own bodies. And so they do a lot of work with poetry, and they're on the board of directors for a certain poetry foundation that seeks to elevate high school kids' work and writings. They have a website called thebodiesnotanapology.org, which is seeks to be an international forum for intersectional social justice. And on there, you can find a lot of different articles on setting boundaries, on healing, on shame, on internalized oppression. And this really seeks to be like a hub on practicing radical self-love, more than just a surface glance or face level body positivity. And she talks a lot about body positivity as being used as a marketing tool, especially under capitalism, of being body positive, especially in an ad campaign. And she's like, that's often used to get women into swimsuits or women into certain lingerie, et cetera, et cetera. And she's like, the goal of body positivity should not be to market or sell something or even to market your body, right, as being acceptable enough. And it's not just, our goal is not to be like, this body is acceptable on the beach, or this body is enough to be seen, and this body is good. Like, the goal is for you to have like a healthy, loving relationship with your body and to radically accept it for what it is. And whatever worshiping or honoring your body looks like for you, then you should have the agency and choice to do that. So she really hinges this idea of acceptance of your body based on choice and agency. So for female or women bodies, she's like, that means the choice and agency to go out whenever you want and to be safe. It means the right to choose, right? And it's not based on comparison. So she often talks about how body positivity can be like looking at a bunch of diverse bodies next to each other and being like, this is equal to this body next to it, and this one is just as good as this one, even though this is lighter skin and this one's skinnier, etc. But all these hierarchies, right, are based in comparison. And if your body positivity is based on that, then you're simply saying that like this level is just as good as this level and you're trying to climb up. And she's like, that is not the basis of acceptance for me. The basis of acceptance is choice and agency. If I can look this way, I can dress this way, I can go out if I want to, but it has nothing to do with you and whatever you do. Like, your choices are yours, my choices are mine. As long as I get to choose everything that I want to choose, then I'm just as happy as you, etc. And I really like this quote that they have from their book, which is, equally damaging is our insistence that all bodies should be healthy. So often we hear that like, it doesn't matter what you look like, as long as you're happy and healthy, then your body's fine and great. Health is not a state we owe the world. We are not less valuable, worthy, or lovable because we are not healthy. Lastly, there is no standard of health that is achievable for all bodies. I think this is, yeah, thank you, Lori, for also shouting this out. It's such a succinct way of speaking to this. But right, the respect and love that we give another person or their body should not be contingent on how healthy they are. And I think we do place this kind of burden on our own bodies and ourselves and others, right? Like, we think about caretaking somebody who is sick as a greater burden as we're caretaking a different type of body. But why is that so, right? Like, that is how their body is. That doesn't mean that I should respect it any less or more. I want to share another short excerpt, the first about 4 minutes of their TED Talk as well. Go ahead and do.
Queer Black poet and activist Audre Lorde said, "Caring for myself is not self-indulgence. It is self-preservation, and that is an act of political warfare." So, welcome, revolutionaries. Good evening. For many of us, we grew up believing that political activism meant a very specific thing, that it meant this, right? Or that it meant this. Or, in its most extreme cases, that it meant this. But what if I told you that political activism isn't actually a choice, that being political isn't a choice? What if I told you that political activism is this? Sikh model Haroon Carr unapologetically rocking a beard. What if I told you it's Stella Young doing a TED Talk on how she is not your inspiration porn? What if I told you that it was 50, 100 Black men graduating from college? The truth is, our bodies are political. The personal is political, whether we want it to be or not. So the really only question to be pondered is whether or not we will use our bodies to uphold systems of oppression or to defy them. The word body positive is quite a buzzword these days. Everybody's saying it, right? It's very cute. Normally, it conjures notions of spa days and rocking your favorite pink bikini, defying the sin of cellulite. And while body love is an amazing thing to aspire to, unto itself, it will not change the world. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but your hot pink bikini and your new Italian Speedo are not disrupting any systems. However, there are ways to use our bodies as everyday acts of resistance. I call this work radical self-love. Radical self-love moves us beyond the flimsy notions of self-esteem or self-confidence. It moves us beyond the notions of individualism. Radical self-love is not independent, it is interdependent. It is about our relationship not only with our bodies, with the bodies of others. As we learn to make peace with our bodies and make peace with other people's bodies, we create an opening for creating a more just and equitable world. Every time you call truce with your body, you interrupt a system of violence and power that profits off of your self-hate. Every time you interrogate the beliefs and biases that you have about other bodies, you interrupt a system that profits off of the way that you feel about other bodies and the systems of comparison that we live in. Our relationship with our bodies is our access to a more just and equitable world. Our relationship with other people's bodies is how we bend the box towards justice. This slide is an amazing.
Thank you all for watching that clip with me. I think they put it very well, better than I ever could, about how our body is a catalyst to, and our relationship with our body is a catalyst for social change, right? And how we can interrupt different systems that profit off of our negative relationships with ourselves and the way that we perceive others as well. Yes, and I lost my train of thought for the first part of what they said. That's okay. I'm gonna pass it over. No, don't play that. Go ahead, Shannon.
Thank you, Celine. I also want to thank you for sharing that video, because I had never seen that before, and that was like so incredible, and Sonia so well spoken that I just am like in awe of everything that she just said. But yes, I will move us into our next activist, Saba Chowdhury, and I first want to share this quote by them before I get into a little bit more about them and share a video about them. They're very much focused on identity, and kind of in the ways that Sonia was speaking about, your body as an act of resistance, as an act of like political rebellion. I think Saba touches a lot on that as well, in talking about the intersections of their identities and sort of the ways that they are perceived by other people and the things that are placed onto them. And so I wanted to read this quote. It says, "I am many things, but I often have to choose. I choose to keep myself safe. Am I ashamed? No. Am I hiding? No. I choose to keep myself safe because it's dangerous. What I represent threatens the norms of our society and expectations of who I should be and who I shouldn't be. A proud transgender Muslim, unapologetic, hairy, brown queer. I know what you're thinking. Yes, we exist. Yes, I am happy. Yes, my friends and family are okay with it. I know what you're thinking because this is the first thing I have to say when I speak to people or attend an LGBT event. I have to justify my existence and convince them I belong. The number of times I go to LGBT events and get asked, oh, hi, are you in the right place? Yes, I am, and I belong here as much as you do. So if we can move into the next slide. Awesome. Okay. So Saba is a Pakistani trans activist with a passion for community. They are the co-founder of Trans Pride Brighton and Colors Youth Network, which has a goal of bringing together queer, trans, Black, Indigenous, people of color, youth across England. I have this quote from their website, which I highly suggest you check out. All of their poetry, all of their writings, and all of their different resources are linked on there. But I think it's just like a nice way to get to know Saba. It says their top 3 passions right now: carving out spaces for queer and trans Desi community, making friends with cats, and taking selfies from bad angles. Relatable content, I think. They are a writer, poet, and speaker, and I wanted to show this clip from their TED Talk, Brown, Trans, Muslim, and Proud. Selena, it's actually on if you click that link. Perfect. And I believe the clip starts at like 5:20. Saba will just speak a little bit about their experience.
Soon after it came out, I followed the classic gay narrative. I moved to Brighton when I was 18, I coloured my hair, and I got lip piercings. My family felt my move hard and felt I was moving away from more than a place I called home. They acknowledged my queerness as a Western disease and saw my expression as a rebellion against our Desi roots. As if coming out was a way to be closer to white culture. As if I wanted to be queer, I had to be white, which was exactly how I felt. When I saw an endocrinologist for hormones, he asked me if I had changed my name yet. I was 22. You see, being trans is measured by how much you want it. And at that time, it meant changing your name. No, I replied. I'm keeping it. Saba is a unisex Arabic name. It means dawn. This didn't sit well with him. He told me that he had only ever met women called Saba, which made it a woman's name. Red-faced, I stayed silent, as I doubted my own knowledge and experience of existing as someone who is not a woman with the name Saba. My name wasn't trans enough, which made me not trans enough. We're in a Western society where standards are measured against whiteness, where whiteness is neutrality. When I talk about someone, their skin color is white by default, unless I say otherwise. White is neutral, and neutral means safe, good, and desired. Beauty standards in non-white countries are often aiming for white features, hair and bodies, thin noses, blonde hair, light skin. People of color are constantly trying to conform to these beauty standards that white people have long dictated. And these standards feed into definitions of what it means to be a man and what it means to be a woman, defining gender, masculinity, and femininity. These norms do not take into account ethnic names, experiences of people of color, or how gender itself is experienced in other cultures. Being a man, woman, or trans enough in the West is not meant to fit people of color. Honestly, I really struggle with people calling me a man. I don't identify as a man. Man doesn't fit me, and it's not meant to. The definition of a man is embodied by the men around me I see that are valued, the masculinity I see that is safe, and the masculinity I see that is beautiful, the default of white masculinity. I'm not valued, I'm not safe, and I'm not beautiful. I am brown, and I am not man enough or masculine enough. I am not trans enough. 3. Reclaiming my faith is a journey I'm still making. Early this year, I was filming myself answering questions about my transition for a documentary. I had help from my partner, who is queer, Muslim, and Pakistani, like me. I was answering a question on how my parents reacted to me coming out as trans. And when we finished filming, my partner pointed out that I had said, "I'm brought up as Muslim." Suddenly, I felt so embarrassed. I realized that I had been saying that for so long without thinking about why or what that really means. My partner said, "It sounds like you're not Muslim." Am I Muslim? Can I call myself that? Am I Muslim enough? We're in a culture that teaches queer people that we don't deserve to be religious. We're taught to put faith only in ourselves because self-love is the only love we will feel. Queer people don't deserve faith or hope because why pray when you're already queer? When people see me speaking about being trans and Desi, I don't usually have a choice in telling them that I'm Muslim. My experiences, my name, my skin speak for themselves. But now, I make the choice to say out loud that yes, I am Muslim. I do not resent Allah anymore. I resent not being closer. I resent turning away from Islam and denying myself faith. I know that when I say I'm Muslim.
Thank you, Celine, for sharing that video, and all of you for sitting through that. I just think it's very much speaks to sort of what we've been discussing so far, this idea that sort of the world and our society like sees you and paints a picture of what they expect you to be or what they expect you to believe and think and ways they expect you to act before you have a chance to assert that for yourself based on the way that you look or your name and I think that Saba speaks to this thing that many of us have experienced, the ideas of being enough, right? So being trans enough, being queer enough, being Muslim enough. And I think that also kind of being able to, and imagining a sort of a queer feminist future, like that would be a world where you're able to say like, I am this and I am also this, and those two things don't have to be mutually exclusive. They can coexist, and that is okay. And that I'm like proud to be all of these things at once, and that contradictions in life and identity is messy, and that's okay. So I just thank you all for listening.
So now in this portion of our event, we'd like to pivot to all of us and our imagining power and our thoughts and lived experience to think about queer futures. And so I'd like to share this quote by Brandon Witt, and it says, talking about what queer means to them and what queer, how expansive it can be to be queer. So this quote says, not queer like gay, queer like escaping definition, queer like some sort of fluidity and limitlessness, limitlessness at once. Queer like a freedom too strange to be conquered. Queer like the fearlessness to imagine what love can look like and pursue it. I really love that last sentence. Brandon is a queer and Black Canadian poet. And I've never heard of that last sentence framed that way, of queer, like the fearlessness to imagine what love can look like, but then also, right, whatever it takes to pursue it. I'd like to share a bit more of an excerpt commentating on this quote. It says that Brandon's quote helps us reconceptualize queerness, expanding it beyond the boundaries of sex and desire, whereas we often think about sexuality as relating to our sex drives and or the sexes that we're attracted to, moving it into the realm of the uncontainable. And so this pivots queer as being something uncontainable and limitless. If radical self-love is the act of becoming different and celebrating yourself, then pursuing a freedom too strange to be conquered is right up the radical self-love alley. In order to compost homophobia and transphobia, which exists in this world, into the rich soil of radical self-love, we must begin to challenge the subtle and not so subtle ways that it governs our world, because our bodies are immediately politicized for being sexualities or presenting the way that they are. And so this article that I pulled this from talked about different ways of doing that, of expanding our idea of sexuality and expanding the ways that our bodies take up space. So like Sonia Renee Taylor talked about, when we change our perceptions of other bodies and do not base the way that we look at them based on comparison, and just extend, right, mutual respect, then that's one way to begin breaking down these systems of oppression in our perceptions. And so this quote goes on to say, it's tempting to assume that the visibility of Caitlyn Jenner and the achievement of same-sex marriage of cisgender people means that we have solved homo and transphobia. But visibility and the legal right to marry are both privileges afforded to those with the most access and other intersecting default identities, such as whiteness or wealth or citizenship. Media would make it appear that the transgender community sprouted overnight. What the Western world understands as transgender identity has been around throughout history, and the term transgender is a Western conceptualization we have created to make sense of expanded gender identity beyond the constraints of a binary. I think if you attended another one of our sessions with the WRC, we talked about how the term transgender is less than 200 years old, or approximately that old, and is coined by American and European scientists. So it is a Western invention of this other than a binary made to contain that. And so if you think about queer as being uncontainable and free from any limited gaze or a Western gaze, then what would our bodies feel like? What would our sexualities look and feel like? Our cultures have long had members of their societies who have lived outside the confines of simply male or female or any box, and our efforts to interrupt body terrorism demands we queer our understanding of gender. So I'd like to share that as the basis of our imagining and future, and to get beyond queer as being anything outside of this norm. It can also look like love. It can also look like acceptance. It looks like freedom, right? And so we're gonna talk about, here's our journaling prompt section, and also we have an activity. I'll let Shannon explain the journal prompts real quick.
Sure, yes. So in thinking about reflecting on what kind of futures we want, not only like structurally, like, so for the society that we live in, but also for ourselves, what futures do we envision for ourselves? Kind of reflect on, I will also put these questions in the chat, but how are your identities separated by others? And how does this affect your relationship with yourself? And also, what does freedom to be yourself look and feel like? And how can you make those feelings into something concrete? We also have a separate activity, build a blank euphoria toolkit that Celine can speak to.
And so in this, I'd like you to choose one of your identities. It could be your sexuality, your gender, etc. And then to create a list or collect the necessary items. The items can be notes, affirmations, food, anything around your house, flowers. Collect those necessary items and affirmations needed to experience euphoria for a particular state of your being. Or you just create step-by-step instructions. And I'll provide an example here by Saba, actually. This is one of their Instagram posts. If you don't follow them on Instagram and you're on Instagram, would highly recommend. But they posted a how to build a gender euphoria toolkit, which I thought was really cool. And so here's an example of it. So one, give compassion to your dysphoria, especially in this world, right, which can impose that onto us. They elaborated in their caption, your dysphoria is not your fault and it is bigger than you. Our culture encourages gender policing with roots in racism, misogyny, and sexism. We internalize what we hear when we don't get to be given a choice of who we can be. Two, affirm yourself. Say your name, say your gender, say your pronouns, say you are who you say you are. You are not in this alone. All bodies are gendered unjustly and unfairly. Trans people and cis people must work together to overcome it. Affirm your trans friends, and that can include yourself. So that's step two. Three, notice your euphoria. Take note of when your gender body expression aligns. Record what that feels like when everything feels aligned. Do you call it euphoria? Is it joy or self-love? Is it radical? Is it satisfaction? And then remind yourself, you 100% deserve to feel this way. And so you're building this toolkit so you can feel that more often. Four, find your confidence outfit. If this is something that you like to do, or you like to dress up, or you have clothes that make you feel happy, then four would be to find your confidence outfit. You know, that top, shoe, nail polish, earrings that make you double. Take yourself, that outfit that begs a selfie session, that accessory that makes us all jealous and doesn't give a damn about your gender. It's made for you, boo. Own it and own yourself. So that would be number four. And then number five, as they shared on their website, they love to take selfies from bad angles. Take a damn selfie. You are strong, you're powerful. Show yourself, show off, show the world. If a selfie isn't for you, find a mirror or find a room. Move, pose, flex, stretch. And oh yes, you do look good. And so this is, if you want and you're comfortable with this, look at yourself to the extent in which you want to, right? And celebrate that image. Sex would be to celebrate different bodies. We don't often get shown gender non-conforming bodies, so we do have to find them. Remember that bodies exist on spectrums, whether it's hair, weight, shape, scars. Our differences, gender diversity, and non-conformity is all beautiful. And then they've posted some hashtags here that you can follow to see more bodies that you might identify with, but also just to expand your idea of what gender is and can look like. So here's one example. I'll go back to this presentation. Yikes. If you want to build your own toolkit of whatever instructions that you want, or you can look up this post if you find them on Instagram, go ahead and make your own Euphoria toolkit. And we'll leave the last 14 minutes-ish for journaling, reflection. Shannon, does that play music and it sounds good?
I definitely can play music. I will do that. Okay, everyone, I just want to acknowledge the time. It is 2 p.m. I know a lot of us have other things that we have to attend to. So thank you all so much for being here today. We really appreciated your time. Thank you. Me waving like everybody's still here and it's just me.